Abusiafo ya makwa babiu eba Twig multimedia eso. Say the mo muni me amete he media na King Kong, the king of all Kongs. Abusiafo say na first time wa wo hwe ya wadawro ma mesere say obekọ video na say obe like no wa share man ko so aye da ya hwe bi na wi a oja comment e wo asiama ni. Subscribe channel no so say bia de bi ano so nsabe de ebeka bi na wetimi ahwe bi. Na abusiafo ya transe ya na ye de nsem ene nam nsem no so de ehwi hwam nko a yes ni nyina mu hwam nhwaw si yes ani de ni na ansa na de mbewuram de nti a ye wa hane no amini kan fa nwura wo kitchen ho wo hwa wa hote sei se ho wo ho nyi wani kasa ho e na me kan fo ma men kan ama wo ma men kan se e de na wo hwehwe shito jese jollof jese wachi fa bibia ope bia otoche na o ma on saka de ope bia sem bia won ma o ye program na jese se duane obedie jese duane kro do be sha ma fo kro na aye ma men kran se frɛ na number da se ho no o frɛ na o ma o program se wa be ka se yes na antum sika emu kakra bi so no baji o nyeso ojo ade mo interview for men contact ma men kran ma duane die mo ye de yes men kran na abusiafo won so a bese obo dwuma de bi hu dawuro e bia wudi dwuma bia wo pese nka ekọ mamanfo hu say yes bibi say ekọ so aha anase ha no wo hwe video yase a contact ta ho obetia for contact no na eja wa frɛ na ya bo hu dawuro e de ama kama fe ai abusiafo ya ncha hu na emu nwura de nti a ya wa hamu na me ma mekasa nye tintin bebre meni kan ko hwe video bi ansa na ya ba ya bidi ho enkomo.
Recently, there is a so-called NGO. It's not even an NGO. Because NGO stands for non-governmental organization. They are not non-governmental because they are funded by a federal budget, by a state. This so-called NGO produces reports claiming that the FDS and the VDP commit abuses. It went in here, it came out there. It's to tarnish your morale. It's to scare you, to prevent you from being able to fight. No. Moreover, we are going to file a complaint against this NGO because people need to understand something. What is happening to us here? It's true that they have manipulated part of our populations in the Sahel here, but they didn't have that kind of weaponry. What brought such significant weaponry into their ranks? It's Libya. Who destroyed Libya? It's this NGO, the same NGO that made false reports and gave them to those who wanted to create a rebellion so that people would intervene and overthrow Gaddafi. And the powder keg ended up being poured into the Sahel. These millions of lives that have been taken in the Sahel, we must file a complaint against this NGO because it is responsible for these false reports it made to support this thesis of attacking Libya. They have no moral lessons to give us. Look at the world. Let them go defend human rights all over the world first before coming here. We are fortunate to have similar situations. In this world, you voluntarily committed yourselves. There are countries where people are forcibly taken, killed. You leave or you die. Others, even while trying to flee, end up dying. They don't talk about human rights because these people see us as subhumans. They see us as slaves. That's how it is in their minds. They have never changed their mindset, but it's up to us to show them that we are not slaves and we will never accept this state of affairs. It should not affect your morale. In the history of the world, there have been wars. And during the Second World War, people organized themselves to defend all over the place. But there is a country that could not defend itself, which had to come and take our ancestors to go defend them. And today that same country wants to give us lessons. the pot calling the kettle black. No. You are the descendants of those same ancestors who went to defend others, who liberated the world from Nazism. Today you are fighting for your lands. These same individuals dare to create terms to tarnish you. We oppose this. We will never agree. Continue to defend your lands.
Abusiafo, say dem wa mu ye no. Emre bi atwam, ye di kan be di papa we say hon komo. Eye Ibrahim Traore. Ye na enua bema. Ono e ka se asra ni a, oye osra ni. Ono na de ne saba ko bon ko second kon. Yes. Ono so friend ho bema. Mi de minim ye kron se bema ho de a, na so no de wa kire se o bema. Enye hon ko a ya te dumbo yanka, ya te chiani nka ya. Na so we say den eni wo ne ho. Na abusiafo like mo enye mo kakra. Enkrofo efre yen we a third world. Just say de yanka ho kra. Enso be se ade ho a na san so ha wo mo. Na nsen abusiafo ya tete. Ya. Just a threat in the above assassinations no kro ne ba. Be se yin na be se 19. And on one kasa no hunipa de oban no pe. Ya on de na on na ekobo bibia mu no na ko bitimi aye no bibi atwuku no. Ono kra omo de iska popu ano ma amfa. Captain Watara. Amfa. Na che omo try on person afede on person mo che no kra. For den ukọ Burkina sisi ya Burkina fo no ni age say the papa we there or say yesu no mu ye. Enso America fo ne France fo no kra ne ba se da bi ono so say oman no da bi o. Me amedem hu dim fi ya metim. Ufra bonte maka say fi hanom no me say ha. How? Ama omo chese sisi ano ye nansia de kra ye wa block America Eastern world no wa block omu nyina videos. Say mbia oba ha ba betwe video bi wa block bibia isi ano no obi an share hwe citizens na mo Burkina ne say omu nyina wa keep inside omu so ni age na busua ade ba chese ni ma o yi no kuronim no ni ma o yi no kuronim no o de link here that say ya mo hwe old video so ya de to ho no old video de to ho a e fa papa die ya ho na nsen ya o say from basic to studies basic school to university free education na ye bu o ye man mu ho na ebinum ba yo mo say emwa no on there was started from Ashasi to Emiye abin America for you so say or the gold no ban ho ban say be ayenyan omo nchene nyan eno so no de ye kuro yi isi akwan ya wo kurum ho no je say machines ekuku damakese what they are trapping kuronim say bia omo nye kuro a direct to omo farms direct to omo say je say amazisi ano je say kurom ho de ba bia befa bia asphalt umpe na apedie Africa besa so regina na so na nsan na hia dikanfo bi sei ana mekan mi mikro minim se bema o hode a but aha no o ma kire se bema e dai e wo ho enya ho nko a o ma do so na nsan no mi hu se papa hama wa bawura na nchen kakra ba 2 times ni na enim de o hwehwe enti no Ghana fo yi munya botre e pride betene kankan ane e pride betene kankan na eya ekoso nyina mu no wo de mo anhwe o se emu nyina mo de say that's otimi atene ho o ye o de kuro no niema like mineral ye wo kuro ni mu o de ye kuro ni yi o de ye kuro ni yi nti fan say bi o yen Ghana fu isenke we kuro nka o mampani bi asori say yan senke ni beje pa na nso no America for ne France for ne hen for so mo ntwe ema sa de we nkoso because omo ene na first omo fa ni free no e ma bi o na wa montena se na monhwe ye se ye yemwa o ye yemwa enso emwa person mo je omo ho no nipa na se da bi ye mamwa no ente omo ho ye be control omo na de ekoso nyina na busuafo amefa video ba ku bi nka mo ho na mo hu de ye be koso aha
Captain Ibrahim Traore, after surviving so many attempts at his life, has decided to come out and expose those who silenced Thomas Sankara and how exactly they did it. But before we begin, we want to ask you this question. Is Captain Ibrahim Traore the type of leader that you would love your country to have? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. He explained that back in 1983, a young and determined soldier stepped into power. He wasn't just another leader, he was a man on a mission. His name was Thomas Sankara. Sankara wanted more than just change. He wanted a revolution. In just 4 years, he pushed forward bold ideas, aiming to lift his people out of poverty and put his small West African country on the world map. But his time was cut short. On October 15th, 1987, tragedy struck. Armed men stormed his office, and in a brutal coup, he was assassinated, alongside 12 of his closest allies. What followed was chilling. His body was taken, dismembered, and buried in an unmarked grave, a fate eerily similar to the tragic end of another African hero, Patrice Lumumba, nearly 3 decades earlier. Yet Sankara's legacy was far from buried. His story is one of courage, vision, and the relentless fight for justice. It all began on December 21st, 1949, in a small village called Yako, back when Burkina Faso was still known as Upper Volta. He was the third of 10 children in a home where discipline and education were deeply valued. His father, Joseph Sankara, had served in the French army during World War II, while his mother, Marguerite Kinder, ensured her children grew up with strong morals and a sense of purpose. Thomas spent much of his childhood in Gaoua, a town surrounded by lush greenery in the country's southwest. His family was better off than most, living in a brick house that overlooked the town, a rare privilege in those days. But privilege didn't keep him from seeing reality. He played with neighbourhood kids, sat in classrooms with local students, and quickly realised that life wasn't as fair for everyone. Even as a child, he had questions. Why were some people struggling while others thrived? Why did foreign powers still hold so much influence over his homeland? Those questions would shape his path in ways no one could have predicted. Back in the days of colonial rule, a small West African territory called Upper Volta barely caught anyone's attention. The French, who controlled it, didn't see much value in the land, except for its people. They treated the country like a human supply centre, sending strong young men off to work in other colonies where France had bigger interests. Unlike wealthier French territories, Upper Volta didn't have many European administrators running things. But in the town of Gaoua, where young Thomas Sankara grew up, there were enough for him to notice a striking difference. The French lived one way, and the Africans lived another. The European kids had better clothes, better homes, and more opportunities, while African children like Thomas had to work harder for everything. Sometimes, tensions boiled over. Fights between African and European kids were common, especially in school. But one day something happened that made things even worse. It was 1960, and Upper Volta was about to become independent from France. Thomas was just 11 years old, but even at that age, he understood the importance of what was happening. So he and his friends decided to stage a little ceremony of their own. They lowered the French flag and raised the flag of the soon-to-be independent Upper Volta. A bold move for a group of kids. Not everyone was happy about it. The European children didn't take it lightly. And before long, a fight broke out between the two groups. Thomas wasn't even directly involved, but that didn't matter. The school director wanted him punished and ordered his father to beat him. His father refused. Instead of getting caught up in fights or distractions, Thomas Sankara threw himself into his studies. He was a natural at math and French, 2 subjects that would serve him well in the future. Outside of school, he was active in church, joining a scout troop, and dedicating time to religious studies. Some of the priests saw his potential. They encouraged him to become a priest and even suggested he attend a seminary. Thomas was open to the idea, but at the same time, he took an exam to enter a regular state-run secondary school. He passed. When his father told the priest that Thomas had chosen a different path, they were disappointed. Their response? You didn't pray hard enough. But Thomas wasn't looking back. At his new school, he continued to shine, top of his class in math and French, but also active in theatre and sports. He was smart, disciplined, and well respected by both his teachers and classmates. Meanwhile, Upper Volta was falling apart. The excitement of independence had faded, and the country's first president, Maurice Yameogo, wasn't exactly the inspiring leader people had hoped for. Thomas Sankara had always been curious about the world, but it wasn't until he started digging into political ideas that his perspective truly began to shift. For the first time, he was seeing Upper Volta's struggles through a revolutionary lens. By the time he graduated from the military academy 3 years later, he wasn't just a soldier, he was a thinker, eager to learn more. Only 2 students from his class were chosen for elite officer training in Madagascar. Sankara was one of them. In October 1969, he landed in Madagascar, where his education expanded far beyond traditional military training. He wasn't just learning about strategy and combat, he was studying agriculture, rural development, and ways to improve farming practices. These ideas would later become the backbone of his leadership. But his thirst for knowledge didn't stop there. While others focused solely on military drills, Sankara was secretly educating himself on political ideologies. He read everything he could get his hands on about revolutionary movements and global struggles for independence. By 1974, he was back in Upper Volta, but he wasn't the same person who had left. Instead of just following orders, he started attending underground meetings with leftist groups and trade unions, always in civilian clothes, always in secret. The government strictly forbade these gatherings, but that didn't stop him. He wanted to understand the people's struggles firsthand. These connections would prove crucial in the years ahead. Then, on November 25th, 1980, a military coup shook the country. Colonel Saye Zerbo seized power, claiming he wanted to restore order, but his government was weak from the start. Sankara watched from the sidelines, until late 1981, when he was unexpectedly brought into the regime as Minister of Information. That turned out to be a big mistake for Zerbo. Instead of towing the line, Sankara used his position to expose government corruption. When the regime became more oppressive, he refused to stay silent. He resigned in protest and paid the price. He was arrested and placed under house arrest. Meanwhile, discontent was growing among younger, more radical officers. Just a year later, on November 7th, 1982, another coup took place. This time, Captain Jean-Baptiste Ouedraogo took over and brought Sankara back into the spotlight, appointing him Prime Minister on January 10th, 1983. By now, Sankara had lost all faith in the country's military elite. He saw them as nothing more than opportunists, more interested in wealth and status than protecting their people. A war only deepened his disillusionment, reinforcing his belief that the army's leadership was out of touch with reality. Despite everything, his career was moving forward. In 1976, he became commander of Upper Volta's Commando Training Center, where he gained respect for his discipline and leadership. Then, 2 years later, fate introduced him to a man who would change his life, Captain Blay Compaoré. They met in Morocco, and what started as a simple acquaintance soon became a deep friendship. As Prime Minister, Sankara's influence was growing. His international travels took him to Libya, where he met Muammar Gaddafi. He also attended the Non-Aligned Summit in New Delhi, India, rubbing shoulders with Fidel Castro, Mozambique's Samora Machel, and Grenada's Maurice Bishop, leaders who had carved out their own paths in global politics. While Thomas Sankara remained focused on his work at the military training center and settling into family life, he couldn't ignore the harsh reality surrounding him. Everywhere he looked, the struggles of his people were impossible to miss. Upper Volta was one of the poorest countries on the planet. Out of its 7 million citizens, most lived in small rural villages, barely scraping by. The economy was in shambles, with the average person earning just $211 a year. Education was a luxury. Fewer than 1 in 10 people could read or write, and only a small fraction of children ever made it past primary school. But the situation was even more dire when it came to survival. Hunger was everywhere. Years of drought, failing crops and soil erosion left families struggling to put food on the table. Diseases ran rampant, and without proper healthcare, life expectancy was shockingly low. Just 44 years on average. Sankara was furious. He saw firsthand how the people of Upper Volta were being crushed under the weight of poverty and neglect. Something had to change. During his time in Ouagadougou, the capital, and on military assignments in France and Morocco, Sankara started building connections with like-minded individuals, those who believed in radical change. Among them was Captain Blaise Compaoré, a young officer who shared his vision. Sankara knew change was necessary, but he also understood that timing was everything. Revolutions weren't just about passion, they required patience, planning, and strategy. So for the moment, he and his allies waited. Then, in November 1980, a coup rocked the country. Colonel Zerbo seized power, promising stability, but his regime quickly started to crack. In an attempt to shore up his government, he appointed Sankara as Minister of Information in late 1981, a decision he would soon regret. Sankara saw his new position as a platform to expose corruption, and he didn't hold back. He supported journalists in uncovering government abuses, giving a voice to those who had none. But when the regime turned more oppressive, cracking down on dissent, Sankara refused to stay silent. He resigned in protest, denouncing the government for its brutality and corruption. For that, he was arrested and placed under house arrest.
Africa, yensu ni nyina na so. De ye bra Traore ye no, yensu betimi aye bi. Ye betimi ayam na broso abusuan. Ye nyina yenken humum. Traye wi ba ko ni buka bu ma yemu. Yensu ni nyina na so ye nyina brane because ye wo tumi se be sa. Make us say nyina say ni krom Ghana for de ye betimi aye. Na mema na obeti kan aso regina no no any problem no. Ghana, so genius, yes, very many. So you how many things here? Let me pay me once more. Me pay me once more. Yay, Chenya Kofa. Oh, boy, Obakon. On the 30th of this month, Ebusia. On the 30th of this month, the whole Africa also march against the Eastern world. Come menemwa. Kame so mesori no machi because so hunu say ye bom say na o metiada o hunu say da bi enmoa no so mada nipa enmoa no afede o mada nipa yes me na nipa o me na nipa na aboro so o matwa achi ma ache ye ne ya de hu de ekuro enso ye ni nkam ye ne hu de yaman enso etenu a enye yi all in the name of Bruni no ye hwan we ni pati say ya o enso de na adwini bi ti ye adai abusia me ni na ho sabo me ni na ho bebre because ya hwe yi a ye be somo mo from ye na no pen so de akwakosi ye na nkan so anu ye me aye de me ntu na nsi ho Traore kan sem bi o say as a slave. So one near rebellious, so one ye be a man who said, like baby at an pa. When you move, say I was here the same move now. Make a move, me who say baby our own pet. So no do about 10 who said there be some customer quack of fight time and if not to hold on now. The damn master and son and 9 or be fight with us. I general. Now what dear, you chrome for being baby before the ye too much man or if a back coming home. You try to tell me for 2 minutes cookum. Any year ones that no sounds to become. Wo because of kakre beba no to mu. No, yenya ne sa kra. Minim say make say woni beje ho say obekọ ka ye papa Traore ho. Onyini bia o. Onyini bia. Em say wo be chen be 55 years. We so be chen be 14 years. Onyini bia. Em say memwa afu mo benya 37 kwa 56 onyini ba bia. Enso dwuma wo di. You betimi ayam na boroso. Ye kromo soja fo mu hwe hu fe. Futro ka ho no de. O face that would no trip. Ne macho fe. Atade wa to so line e down no safa so bi twa. Enso you to kru plan mo banim. Na we de ko gina France for. We de ko gina UK for anim. Abusian fo me hunye hu kakra. Traore isi ono nsuro hwio onfa boga nya swan because what kan ho no wanya chidom mo yan so yankekan hu bi on the 30th of this month abusian nyina yen so de nyina na so ne march against the Eastern world on pese omo kan kasa boa e hye yen abusian yen fo mo nko akire Ebi mbesi ha. Ne bia ba beka hu bia no so no. E bebre mo. Ama mo so mahwede e koso wo area Africa yeman ni mu. Yes. Na ansa na be sore so no. Be kan fo ma men kan ama. Make say nyina wani agi a wani agi nyina no bedidi. Na se wudi na se nya woda. We se na kwa be ka say asset ya na emi di kura kom ni mi oboa kom de odua na nya wode. Kom ma men kan ho. Me na ba na da se no. O fa number na afre na be mo correct this. Yes. Be di diam wani agi. Shito. Ah! Oh yeah. Watch it. Jai. Say fried rice, say plain rice, say bibia still bibia my men can be more correct one. Yes. Didn't you know? Abusia. Won so a wo pese e bo bibi hu dawuro de ma wono. Wa dawuro ma no ama ho aye ha na wa frɛ number ye da si. Na trade multimedia we bo wasem kro no hu dawuro de ama wo. Ama bibia ko fe. Ai bibia be kama. And then the first time I messed it. And someone ya can the opposite of my person can be from one. I see her comment section ho to my who we are share man from so be. Then like video ni my I na subscribe channel no so be na your first time. Subscribe say baby be the baby piano was abede e be can be. Abusua men check en kon makra no.